Hey guys, I'm just here to tell you guys about my story and how I ended up finding my faith and finding my religion and gaining my relationship with God. It all started out about 3 years ago when my dad had been in a near-fatal motorcycle accident. And this accident had left him both physically and mentally traumatized. And throughout this whole thing, my family had been rocked, and we didn't know how to respond to it. And my whole family, out of all of us, my sisters had probably been hit the hardest out of this thing, along with my mom. And with this, I felt like, as a kid, I had to step up and take my dad's place and be there when everybody else wasn't. So I left my school, I left my friends, I left my faith, and I left sports behind me. And I stepped up to the plate. And when I did this, about 2 days later, I began feeling guilty about my dad's accident because I hadn't asked him if he wanted to go to the movies that night. And so what I did was about 2 days later, I took a rope down to my room with me, and I closed my door. And I took this rope and I tied it to the back of my door, and then I made a noose. I put this noose over my neck, and I remember before I did anything else, I made sure I said a prayer to God, asking God to show me that it's not my fault and that He has a plan. So after that, I took the lean, and what I'm assuming was I was probably close to death, and what happened was my rope snapped. And it was in that instant that God had first actually spoken to me and told me that it wasn't my fault. He spoke to me to read Matthew 4. Matthew 4 talks about how Jesus had been being tempted by the devil, whether it was turning stones into bread, or when the devil took Jesus to the highest mountaintop and showed him everything that he could have. But Jesus turned the devil down. He looked up to God and he said, God, I give my life to you, and you are the only person I shall follow. And you see, I feel like that became me in that instant, because when God broke that rope, I realized that I had to give my life to God. And then in Hebrews 11, it talks about how even some of Jesus' closest followers have to go through their tough times. Whether it's with Abraham and God asking him to sacrifice his only son Isaac, and Abraham just having to believe in God. Or with Moses denying being the Pharaoh's daughter's son, and all the treasures and everything that he could have had to set out on a life for God, to follow God, and to gain these treasures that God has for him. And you see, when you step out in faith and you believe in God, God gives you some of the greatest gifts that you can ever have. For me, my greatest gift that God ever gave me was not only my life, but having a relationship with Him. And then in Acts 3, it talks about how John and Peter had been walking through this town to go to a temple and praise. And outside of this temple, they see this lame man sitting out begging for gold and silver. And this lame man had asked John and Peter for gold and silver, and they said, we have no gold or silver to spare you, but what we do have is the power of Christ. And then in that instant, they lifted up the man and set him on his feet. And these man's feet, ankles, and legs instantly became strong with the power of Christ. And John and Peter said, walk with us through this town with the power of Christ. And the man not only walked, but he ran, he danced, he sang, and he praised in the Spirit of God. And you see, doing all this, it brought the attention of the townspeople. And the townspeople had began to question John and Peter about what power it was that they had that gave the lame man the power to walk. And they said it was not our power, but it was through Jesus Christ that we gave this man the ability to walk. And you see, I feel like I was both that lame man and both John and Peter. Because I was the lame man because I felt like I could never do anything right. I felt like standing up for my family, I wasn't ever good enough. And trying to be there, I just couldn't all the time. And then when the Spirit was spoken into me, I felt like I became John and Peter because I had the opportunity to go out and to spread my faith, my religion, and my beliefs to all of you guys. So the only thing that I'm asking you is if you'll be relentless in God, how God